Welcome to History Facts and Mysteries, where we delve into the lives of historical figures whose actions have reshaped our world. In today's episode, we turn our focus to one of the most infamous and consequential figures in modern history, Adolf Hitler. Whether you're a history buff or simply curious about how a single individual could alter the course of nations, this video is for you. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss our future deep dives into the complexities of history. Early life and formative years. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, a small town on the border between Austria and Germany. His early life was marked by both personal struggles and the turbulent environment of late 19th century Central Europe. Born into a modest family, Hitler experienced a strict and sometimes harsh upbringing under the discipline of his father, Alois Hitler, a customs official, and his mother, Clara Hitler, who provided a gentle counterbalance. From a young age, Hitler was exposed to nationalist ideas. Growing up in Austria, he encountered a society in the midst of shifting cultural identities and political instability. His education was erratic, marked by both a desire for artistic expression and frequent failures in school. Despite his early interest in art, his repeated rejections from the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts forced him to confront the realities of a world that would not readily accept his talents. During these formative years in Vienna, Hitler's views began to harden. The political climate was charged with nationalist fervor, and the multi-ethnic Austro-Hungarian Empire was slowly disintegrating amid rising anti-Semitic and anti-Marxist sentiments. It was in Vienna that Hitler's political consciousness began to take shape. While living in relative poverty, he absorbed the prevailing ideas of racial superiority and nationalistic pride circulating in the city. His exposure to the writings of nationalist thinkers and the bitter experiences of economic hardship and social alienation deeply influenced his later ideology. These early influences would later merge with the political chaos of post-World War I Germany, setting the stage for his ascent. The impact of World War I and the post-war period. World War I was a pivotal event for an entire generation, and Adolf Hitler was no exception. Like many young men of his time, he volunteered to serve in the German army. His experiences on the Western Front were both traumatic and formative. The brutal realities of trench warfare, the loss of countless comrades, and the eventual defeat of Germany left an indelible mark on him. For Hitler, the humiliation of defeat and the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles became the catalysts for his lifelong hatred of the Allied powers and a burning desire for revenge. The post-war period in Germany was characterized by political and economic chaos. The country was plunged into a state of hyperinflation, mass unemployment, and social unrest. The Weimar Republic, established in the aftermath of the war, struggled to govern a nation rife with disillusionment and resentment. Hitler, like many others, viewed this period as a time of national betrayal. He capitalized on the widespread discontent by positioning himself as a voice for the downtrodden, a man who understood the suffering of the German people and had a plan to restore national pride. During these years, Hitler's oratorical skills began to shine. He delivered passionate speeches that combined a potent mix of nationalism, anti-Semitism, and anti-communism, resonating deeply with a population desperate for change. His rhetoric tapped into the collective memory of German defeat and humiliation, stirring emotions and rallying support among those who felt abandoned by their leaders. At rallies and meetings, his ability to captivate an audience helped him build a dedicated following that would form the backbone of the Nazi Party. The economic collapse and political instability provided the perfect storm for radical ideologies. Hitler's message was simple yet devastating. He promised to restore Germany to its former greatness by overturning the Treaty of Versailles, eliminating the so-called undesirable elements in society, and uniting the German people under a single, powerful banner. This message found fertile ground in a society gripped by despair and disillusionment. In this climate, the formation of the German Workers' Party, which would later evolve into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, or Nazi Party, was a significant turning point. Hitler quickly rose through the ranks, demonstrating not only a keen strategic mind but also an uncanny ability to manipulate public sentiment. His early involvement in street battles and political skirmishes showcased his willingness to use force to achieve his aims. By exploiting the fears and frustrations of the populace, he turned the Nazi Party into a formidable political force capable of challenging the established order. The period following World War I was thus a crucible for Hitler's ambitions. The combination of personal loss, national humiliation, and economic despair laid the groundwork for his later rise. His experiences during and after the war transformed him from an embittered veteran into a determined revolutionary, one who believed that only radical change could redeem a shattered nation. The rise of the Nazi Party and Hitler's ascent. By the early 1920s, the Nazi Party was beginning to gain traction in a country desperate for stability and national pride. Hitler's leadership played a critical role in transforming the party from a small fringe group into a mass movement. His charisma and determination, coupled with his ability to articulate a vision of national rebirth, resonated with many who had lost faith in traditional political institutions. In 1923, the infamous beer hall putsch marked a dramatic, but ultimately unsuccessful, attempt by Hitler and his followers to seize power in Munich. Although the coup failed, it proved to be a turning point in his political career. During his subsequent trial and imprisonment, Hitler used the platform to refine his ideas and to gain national exposure. His book, Mein Kampf, written during this period, laid out his ideology and future plans for Germany. Although its ideas were radical and deeply troubling, they provided a blueprint for his vision of a racially pure and militarily dominant nation. After his release from prison, Hitler realized that the path to power lay not through a violent coup, but through the democratic process. The Nazi Party began to focus on winning elections and building a broad base of support among the middle classes, veterans, and even segments of the working class. Through relentless propaganda, mass rallies, and an organized network of local party cells, the Nazis capitalized on the economic and social turmoil of the Weimar Republic. Their message of national revival, combined with promises to restore law and order, attracted a wide array of supporters. Hitler's rise was also facilitated by his ability to form strategic alliances. By aligning himself with influential industrialists, conservative politicians, and military figures, he managed to secure the resources and legitimacy needed to contest the existing political system. This network of allies, however uneasy it might have been, was crucial in providing the political backing that allowed the Nazi Party to expand its influence. Throughout the late 1920s and early 1930s, the Nazi Party's electoral successes steadily increased. By exploiting the weaknesses of the Weimar government, its inability to manage the economic crisis and its political fragmentation, Hitler and his followers convinced many that drastic change was necessary. His fiery speeches, replete with promises of a renewed German identity and a future free from the shackles of Versailles, captured the hearts of a disillusioned nation. In January 1933, a critical turning point arrived when President Paul von Hindenburg appointed Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. This appointment, made under intense political pressure and amid a series of backroom deals, marked the beginning of Hitler's legal ascent to power. Once in office, he moved quickly to consolidate his control. Through a series of legislative measures and the use of state-sponsored violence, the Nazis dismantled the democratic institutions of the Weimar Republic and established a totalitarian regime. Hitler's appointment as Chancellor was not the result of a single moment of genius, but rather the culmination of years of careful planning, opportunistic alliances, and the exploitation of national crises. His ability to navigate the complex political landscape, turning every setback into a stepping stone, remains one of the most studied aspects of his rise to power. Nazi ideology, propaganda, and policies. At the heart of Hitler's leadership was a virulent ideology that combined extreme nationalism, anti-Semitism, and a desire for territorial expansion. Nazi ideology was built on the notion of Aryan racial superiority and the belief that the purity of the German race was under constant threat from internal and external enemies. This ideology was not merely a set of abstract beliefs. It became the driving force behind the policies and actions of the Nazi regime. One of the most powerful tools in Hitler's arsenal was propaganda. Under the guidance of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda machine meticulously crafted messages that glorified the German people, dehumanized perceived enemies, particularly Jews, communists, and other undesirables, and portrayed Hitler as the savior of the nation. The policies implemented by the Nazi regime were as brutal as they were far-reaching. The establishment of concentration camps, the systematic persecution of Jews and other minorities, and the implementation of policies designed to purify the nation were all driven by an ideology that saw human life as expendable in the quest for racial purity and national strength. These policies not only led to the horrors of the Holocaust but also fundamentally altered the social fabric of Germany. Domestically, the Nazis sought to reshape every aspect of life in Germany. The regime introduced strict controls over education, culture, and even private life, all in the name of creating a unified, racially pure society. The cult of personality surrounding Hitler was carefully cultivated, with his image portrayed as that of a visionary leader who could restore Germany to greatness. His speeches, filled with passionate rhetoric and promises of renewal, were designed to evoke both fear and admiration. In addition to its repressive domestic policies, the Nazi regime pursued an aggressive foreign policy aimed at expanding German territory. The remilitarization of the Rhineland, the annexation of Austria and Sluis, and the dismemberment of Czechoslovakia were all part of a calculated plan to revise the post-World War I international order. The Nazi worldview was underpinned by a belief in destiny and the inevitability of German dominance. This fatalistic confidence, combined with the propaganda machine and the brutal enforcement of Nazi policies, created a regime that was both charismatic and terrifying. Hitler's ability to articulate an all-encompassing vision, a future in which Germany would rise above its perceived enemies and reclaim its rightful place on the world stage, was a key element in his control over the nation. Hitler's role as a charismatic leader and propaganda icon. Adolf Hitler's personal magnetism and powerful oratory were central to his rise and his ability to maintain control over Germany. His speeches were masterclasses in persuasion, often delivered with an intensity that left audiences spellbound. His image, carefully constructed and relentlessly propagated, became a symbol of hope for some and a figure of terror for others. The Nazi Party's propaganda portrayed him as a messianic figure, a leader destined to restore Germany to greatness. This cult of personality was reinforced by constant visual and verbal repetition. Posters, films, and radio broadcasts repeatedly depicted him as the embodiment of German strength and resolve. The impact of World War II and Hitler's downfall. Hitler's aggressive expansionist policies and ideological ambitions ultimately plunged the world into the deadliest conflict in human history, World War II. His invasion of Poland in September 1939 triggered a chain reaction that led to the mobilization of nations across the globe. As Germany's military machine, powered by innovative tactics and rapid mechanization, swept through Europe, the scope of Hitler's ambitions became terrifyingly clear. In the early years of the war, German forces achieved a series of stunning victories. The Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, tactics allowed the Wehrmacht to quickly overrun vast territories. Countries such as France, Denmark, Norway, and Belgium fell to German forces with alarming speed. The rapid conquests bolstered Hitler's confidence and deepened the resolve of his regime to continue its aggressive campaign. However, as the war dragged on, the limitations of Hitler's strategy became apparent. The invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, known as Operation Barbarossa, marked a turning point. Initially, the vast expanse of the Eastern Front provided German forces with tactical advantages, but the brutal Russian winter, extended supply lines, and fierce Soviet resistance soon eroded these gains. The failure to secure a decisive victory in the East was a major blow to Hitler's grand ambitions. The war also exposed the inherent contradictions of Nazi ideology. The genocidal policies aimed at racial purification not only led to the systematic extermination of millions of Jews, Romani people, and other minorities but also drained resources and sapped the moral fabric of the German state. As Allied forces advanced from both the East and the West, Germany found itself fighting on multiple fronts, and the once formidable Nazi war machine began to crumble under the combined pressure. By 1944, the tide had turned decisively against Hitler. The Allied invasion of Normandy, the relentless Soviet advance, and the depletion of German resources all contributed to a rapidly deteriorating situation. As the war reached its final stages, Hitler retreated further into his bunker in Berlin, surrounded by a dwindling circle of loyalists. His refusal to acknowledge the inevitable defeat and his insistence on holding on to power at all costs only hastened the collapse of the regime. On April 30, 1945, with Berlin surrounded and defeat imminent, Adolf Hitler took his own life. His suicide marked the end of a tyrannical chapter in history, a final, grim note in the saga of a leader whose ambitions led to unspeakable suffering and loss of life. The aftermath of the war left Germany in ruins, and the world was forced to confront the immense human cost of Hitler's vision. The legacy of Adolf Hitler: controversy, memory, and lessons. Few figures in history provoke as much controversy and reflection as Adolf Hitler. His name is forever associated with the horrors of genocide, war, and totalitarianism. Yet, his impact on history is undeniable. The legacy of Hitler serves as a powerful reminder of how destructive charismatic leadership and extremist ideology can be when combined with a ruthless political machine. In the decades since World War II, historians, political scientists, and educators have grappled with the question of how to remember and understand Hitler's legacy. Museums, memorials, and countless academic studies have been dedicated to exploring the causes, events, and consequences of his rule. While some have attempted to dissect his methods in order to understand the mechanics of his rise, there is a universal consensus that his actions represent a catastrophic deviation from the values of human dignity and freedom. Thank you for joining us on this deep and complex exploration of one of history's most notorious figures. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, please subscribe to History Facts and Mysteries and click the bell icon to stay updated on our latest content. Your support helps us continue to unearth the hidden truths of our past, so we can learn from them for a better future.